I debated for a long while whether I wanted to do the Ace Attorney trilogy as a collection or an individual thing. Whether I should do like 3 reviews covering all the games in the trilogy or just simply going over the trilogy as a whole. And there's a pretty good reason for that. The games are generally these days packaged together in the Ace Attorney trilogy. I imagine that's how most people are playing them, how most people are experiencing them. They're very, very similar. There aren't a whole lot of evolutions. There aren't a whole lot of changes. There isn't like a whole lot to talk about, like from game to game to game. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt like I would be doing the series a little bit of a disservice if I didn't talk about like each individual thing that made each Ace Attorney game similar, special, because there are differences in these games. There are reasons to play all of them. There is a real sense of progression and growth, not only in the gameplay but in the story and characters. It is, I think, an impeccably well-made series. One of my all-time favorites. The third game in particular is probably one of my favorite games of all time. But today we're focusing on the original, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Released, I believe, initially on the Game Boy Advance in 2001. This was a Capcom release that sought to answer this question of how do you adapt lawyers into a video game? How do you make legal work interesting? What they came up with was creating a mystery game starring this protagonist, Phoenix Wright, and his handling of legal cases where he fights to defend his client from a murder charge. To do this, Phoenix exposes contradictions in witness testimonies and flaws in the prosecution's arguments by presenting evidence to turn the tides in his favor, to sort of go through the situation, understand it fully, and prove that his client is innocent and that another party is guilty. It's a bit of a goofy take on legal work. It's a bit over the top. Like, for example, in the Ace Attorney universe, all trials have to be concluded within 3 days. There's all sorts of weird, finicky aspects to it, like the prosecution submitting evidence out of nowhere without verifying it with investigators and things like that. The game is not at all realistic, but it's not really trying to be. It is a fun fantasy legal adventure in which your character sort of is introduced to the world, and through the first couple of cases are taught how to play the game. You're taught how to handle cross-examinations. You're taught how to what to focus on when it comes to these large amounts of exposition. You learn how to solve these cases, and you learn what and you try to figure out like what exactly happened in this case. It is insanely fun. It's very, very memorable, very engaging, very well written. Lots of great funny moments. It's a very, very engaging title. One that I think really stands on its own as being one of the most unique ongoing Capcom franchises in recent years. There's really, really nothing else like it. I am completely in love with this series. Ups and downs aside, there are low points in the series. This title in particular, being the first, kind of suffers from, not having the rules set in stone, kind of requiring you, kind of teaching the player how the game works, rather than being an interesting, engaging story or mystery. Trying to establish the setting and the characters, rather than like really becoming as engaging and memorable as a lot of the later entries. There are things definitely in the first game that stick out. Right, like this is where we're introduced to characters like Phoenix Wright, Maya Fey, Miles Edgeworth, characters that are kind of have become like iconic in their own right. Characters that like we really love and appreciate and like to see. The game just really does feel almost like a playable anime in its presentation and its style and its storytelling, and you never really get tired of it. Like even like when the cases are kind of ridiculous and don't make a whole lot of sense, when like maybe things go down a bad route or whatever, maybe or when you fail or make mistakes, you do want to see what happens next all the time. And I think that's a really good, strong point for the series is that, like, it never really feels as if you're out. It never really feels slow or boring, or it feels like it's plodding along and not really going anywhere. You're always taking on new cases. You're always meeting new characters. You're always taking the plot in new directions. And as the series goes on, the plots get more and more complicated, take on more and more aspects, and start doing lots of little things to adjust and fine-tune the process. But this is the game that started it all. Like, this is the game that I think a lot of first-time players will be experiencing. I started with the third game, but going back and playing this one, I did enjoy my time with it. Overall, like, yeah, I feel like the first two cases could have been better handled. I don't think the game really picks up until case 3. I think case 5 goes on too long. Like, yeah, case 4 could have been more interesting. Like, there are a lot of things about Ace Attorney that, like, are the original Ace Attorney that are kind of finicky, but by the second game, and especially by the third, like, all of those things have been ironed out to create, like, one of the finest adventure game trilogies in video game history. This game is a downright must play. One of the best games currently available on Switch. Definitely check it out if you have the chance.
Objection!